Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. A Georgia grand jury has recommended multiple indictments for perjury in the case where Fulton County DA Fani Willis is investigating the 2020 presidential election and where former President Donald Trump called the Secretary of State asking him to, quote, find him more votes. We're going to have some details on that developing situation down in Georgia. We will also have details on President Joe Biden's executive order issued yesterday that directs all federal agencies to act decisively toward racial equity and what not to do when you land that big interview. Well, one YouTube influencer found out the hard way when he landed an interview with superstar Drake. We will discuss what happened in that disaster yesterday. But first, the grand jury in Georgia has some serious recommendations, and what implications will it have on Donald Trump? Well, we're going to discuss with Austin Cooper of the Washington Informer, and soon to join us is Mark Make It Plain Thompson. Good morning, Austin.
Good morning, Stacey. Good to see you, and good morning to your viewers.
Always good to have the one and only Austin Cooper. Austin, look, a special grand jury report on whether then President Donald Trump and his allies tried to unlawfully interfere in the 2020 election results in Georgia shows most of the grand jurors believe some witnesses may have lied under oath. A majority of the grand jury believes that perjury may have been committed by one or more witnesses testifying before it. A section of the report that was released yesterday said the grand jury recommends that the DA seek appropriate indictments for such crimes where the evidence is compelling. The newly unsealed portions of the report also reveal new information about the scale of the investigation, but it doesn't shed light on who the grand jury believes should be charged and for what besides perjury. The grand jury report says, quote, they received evidence from or involving 75 witnesses during the course of this investigation, the overwhelming majority of which information was delivered in person under oath. It also says the panel heard extensive testimony on the subject of alleged election fraud from poll workers, investigators, technical experts, and state of Georgia employees and officials, as well as from persons who still claim such fraud took place. And the jury concluded that we find by unanimous vote that no widespread fraud took place. So, Austin, given that last sentence, the grand jury backed everything we know that there was no fraud. They explicitly laid out we found no evidence of any type of fraud in the 2020 election, but they said many of the witnesses, which includes just about all of former President Trump's inner circle, they believe committed perjury, among others. Now, a lot of portions of this was redacted. It was highly redacted. And the judge said that the reason for the redaction is to protect folks who, may be currently consulting with counsel. So we know that the indictments are now just, days away, if you will, if not a couple of weeks away.
Well, this grand jury report, and I'm thankful for their work, but I don't think that any of us who can be objective when it comes to this type of news are surprised with their finding. I mean, the report reinforces what Georgia's own Republican Secretary of State said. It reinforces what 62, 65 judges across the United States, including, if my stats are right, at least half or majority of whom were appointed by Donald Trump, and it reinforces the findings of the January 6th, Benny Thompson's committee. So there are no surprises here. I'm anxious to see who committed perjury. I mean, that is where the real news is. But I'm not surprised that perjury was committed by several of those who testified, including I'm wondering if Lindsey Graham is on that list of those who perjured themselves. I mean, think about it. Here is a man who, at one point, was during the election, was the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Oh God, think about that. Yeah.
Lindsey Graham, and it's not the first time he's been on judiciary for most of his Senate career. Finally ascending to the chairmanship. Obviously, now he is the ranking member of that committee. But you've got an individual like him who had to be forced to testify. You remember,
Yep.
he forced a subpoena, and he also made calls to Georgia
Yep.
to interfere. So what he did is no different from what Donald Trump did. We just don't have exactly what he said on recording as we do with Donald Trump. And thank God that the former Secretary of State, the Ratzenberger,
Yes, Brad.
um,
Yes.
that he felt the need. Can you imagine getting so many calls from the President of the United States? And at some point, probably with the very first call, why he's calling.
Mm-hmm.
He wants me to do something illegal. He wants me to do something immoral. Hey, Ratzenberger voted for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He voted for him.
Exactly. Exactly.
He also voted for him in 2016.
Yep.
So here he is being. I mean, just imagine, going to my original point. Imagine getting so many calls from the White House, and so many calls in particular from the president. He said he had never spoken to Donald Trump before. And he endorsed him in 2016. Between 2016 and when all this went down, he never had one conversation with the president of the United States. I'm sure he met him, but by conversation, I mean,
Right.
these type of telephone calls.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. David Youngblood does mention, and we can't forget this, that he also called Wisconsin as well. If you recall,
That's
that
right.
was
That's
another one
right.
of those places where he was, targeting Milwaukee, and saying that things don't look quite right. Looks like some fraud is taking place there. Any area that was heavily populated with people of color, they took aim at. And here's another one of Donald Trump's problems. He goes after black women so hard. Well, he has one in Georgia that's really coming after him relentlessly. And now she has the power of this grand jury report. And I'm sure that as you mentioned, as you alluded to with Lindsey Graham, this highly redacted report, Trump is redacted from the report. There's no question, because it's about
Absolutely,
him.
absolutely, absolutely. It's all about him.
It's all about him.
It's all about him. It's always been about him. And I'm just hoping that with Letitia James and with this young sister here in Georgia, finally we see this president begin to be held accountable to the criminality that has been a part of his life for his entire life, and it just continued in the presidency. I have to admit, I was one of those. Obviously, I supported, Secretary Clinton during the
Mm-hmm.
2016 campaign, but I wrote a piece um, right after the election, and I said, let's give him a chance. I said perhaps he did this all during the campaign
Dave Chappelle said the same
as a
thing. Let's
way
give him
of
a
being,
chance.
completely crazy. But now, exactly. But now that he's in the White House, maybe he's going to somehow come to his senses. I could not have been more wrong, because power made him even crazier. And if he gets back in, God help us all. God help
He's
us all.
look, he's talking about mass executions if he gets back in. This is him
That's right.
talking about.
Yep, yep,
But
yep.
I recall, one of the things that I remember is, like many of us, we have so many memories of the Trump administration. But one of the things that stands out to me is soon after he took office in January of what was that, 17?
Yep.
And March, of course, is always Black Press Week. I like to think
Mm-hmm.
it's Black Press Month. We have
Mm-hmm.
our Black Press Week, and we call Miss Omarosa.
Harrelson, that's right.
She is the infamous former reality show, Trump reality show person black woman who was backing him so much that she proclaimed that folks are going to bow down to Trump and
Bow
kiss the
down.
ring, she said,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And she came to Black Press Week. And when Hazel Trice Edney challenged her on, because she had promised that Dr. Ben Chavis was going to receive the first interview with President Trump. And when Hazel Edney challenged her, she got mad. She stormed out of the hotel that we were in Washington,
Really, really.
creating this scene. And, I just remember how it just stood out to me that, wow, anybody around that guy has got some issues.
Exactly,
Anybody and
exactly.
everybody around
I
him has
mean,
got some issues.
yeah, I mean, it's like a immoral, crazed, racist, self-hating epidemic.
Oh,
You,
yeah.
when you get around him, the more time you spend around him. I mean, look at Michael Cohen. I mean, Michael Cohen has come to his senses, but
I
he
think Michael Cohen was
acknowledged.
forced to come to his.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly, exactly. But I mean, thank goodness he's doing the right thing now. But he talks about the intoxication of power with Trump. I can understand some people becoming intoxicated with power when you're around any president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of the image that Donald Trump created for himself as a successful businessman, as running a multi-company in out of New York City, Trump Associates really nothing but a glorified mom and pop shop.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny too, as we welcome Mark, make it plain Thompson. It's so funny you mentioned like the aura and the power being around that. And I remember covering if I get the college wrong, forgive me. We were in South Carolina with Donald Trump, Stevie Larkin, and myself. Stevie Larkin is the one of the advertising executives for the NNPA. Sat up front. Trump basically was pretty much standing next to us, and I just felt like this guy is such a loose. He's not all there, right?
Unstable.
Now, what I'm getting at is you're right. When you're around folks with power, I recall a few times that I got a chance to spend with Michael Jackson, and just felt like this, like, wow, this is really, you felt a certain way. I felt a certain way that I never thought I could feel about someone that's not related to me,
Mm-hmm,
and I didn't know that well. And so it kind of sucks you in a bit. And with Trump, he really sucked these people in. And I think in some of those cases, at least, maybe not in all of those cases, Sarah Huckabee is, and people like her, but in some of those cases, I really believe that when they, in hindsight, now that it's over with, they regret a lot of that stuff.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so Mark, we're trying to make sense of something that you probably can't make sense of, right? And that is Donald Trump.
Wait a minute. You asking me? Good morning.
Hey, brother Mark.
To make sense, y'all woke me up to try to make sense of Donald Trump.
we got Mark Thompson out of bed, and the first thing he hears is Donald Trump.
No, the first thing I'm hearing is we trying to make sense of Donald Trump. That's
trying to make sense of it.
No, my brother here just said it best. I mean, he's always operated in this way, and he's been allowed to. And frankly, there was a lot of enabling of this, mm-hmm. in the sense that, I mean, what he was a TV celebrity, which, to most people was benign, and everybody watched him, and it was, interesting to watch. You're fired. And, once someone is created in that fashion, it's difficult to pull back from that. Once they go from so-called reality television to reality, real life. And so there were a lot of people involved in the enabling of Donald Trump. So, that's the only sense I can make out of it. And frankly, and I had another guest of mine join me recently to talk about how much corporate media, not what we do, Stacey, but how much corporate media benefited from him running for president. I mean, he was that train wreck that kept on giving,
Yep.
even in his disaster, and that's a part of the problem too, and that's even more enabling in terms of this. In the grand jury, in terms of what it found, and maybe y'all can help me with this, because I'm a little bit confused. They're saying that there's to be prosecution for perjury, but what they're saying that they found no voter fraud.
Right.
But I thought, and I don't think, I mean, they didn't get to do the voter fraud. He asked Raffensperger, Trump did, to commit fraud. Is that not a crime unto itself? I think if either one of us called somebody and asked them to find some votes, that would somehow be made into a crime in and of itself. I don't know, but maybe.
Well, you raise exactly. So you raise a great point, because the way, and this is why it's important to have that full report, which apparently we're going to get sooner than later, because they did conclude that there was no voter fraud, like as you spelled out. But one of the things that DA Willis is looking at is fraud on the part of Donald Trump, not voted for. So the question becomes: is the grand jury, Austin, saying that there was no voter fraud, and or are they saying that Trump didn't commit fraud?
That's a good point that Brother Mark made. My initial reaction until hearing him say that was, as I said at the top of the show, they concluded what 65 other judges have concluded, that in our election here in Georgia, there was no voter fraud. The elections stand as is.
Yeah. Mark,
so again, that was my interpretation until Mark made that very interesting comment.
But see, right, and we get there was no fraud. The election went forward in the way that it should, but I thought the grand jury was investigating whether he attempted fraud. If that's, maybe that's not a charge. I don't know. Maybe that's not in the criminal statute. That
trying to influence an election is right.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to think out, and that's clear. We got the phone call.
Right. The phone call is
exactly.
And grand juries
talk about smoking guns. Well,
yeah, and grand juries indict black people and ham sandwiches every day. That's the saying. A grand jury will indict a ham sandwich or an African American.
So let's see what happens now.
Right. No, that's what we need. That phone call alone is the most indicting piece of evidence there is.
Without
and I can't believe that we're. Brother Mark and Stacey, I can't believe that that phone call came out a year and a half ago, at least.
Right.
And here we are, still a year and a half later, and the person who made the phone call, we're caught up in all of these legal twists, and I'm just hoping that at some point he is held accountable for the obvious. As Mark said, had that been you and I, making a call and someone made that, we would not have gone through all of this. We would have been,
here's another caveat to that.
Indicted.
Another caveat to that, right? We always say, well, such and such can afford the best of lawyers, and Trump certainly fits into that category of being able to afford the best of lawyers. But we know that his lawyers are like the Keystone Cops for the most part, right? His lawyers have all found themselves in trouble with the bar and legally.
Need lawyers themselves.
Look, that's one of the dumbest clients you could accept. When you see all of his other lawyers are, one, not paid, and two, end up getting indicted themselves. Why would you stick your neck out there for somebody who's not going to pay you? I will say this. And I may have said this before, Stacey and Austin. It's good to see you too as well, Brother Austin. The most interesting thing about Raffensperger is not this trial or the phone call itself, but his reply to Trump, which we heard more about during the January 6th hearings. When Trump said, find me this number of votes, Raffensperger eventually told him, look, I can't find those votes for you, Mr. President, because 30,000 Georgia Republicans, approximately 30,000, did not vote for you at all. Now,
exactly.
This is Georgia now. What was going on in Georgia that Republicans chose in that number not to vote for him? And this is before January 6th. You see, which to me forebodes he's done electorally. If you didn't vote for him in Georgia in 2020, why would you come back and vote for him in 2024? And that's not to say he won't still be the nominee.
Right.
Because the one thing about Trump that DeSantis and Nikki Haley can do, Trump does know how to play the dozens. You know, and he vanquished all of his other opponents playing the dozens. Lil Marco, low TJ Bush. And I admit, see, again, we didn't even take that seriously. Dick Gregory and I used to laugh at him because, he would get on those. It was hilarious. The whole thing with my man, Ted Cruz and his father.
Assassinating the president.
But Austin, that's what was wild. Ted is so stupid. the people asked Ted, why? Because this is a fact. We don't know whether he was involved in assassination, but the picture, he's in a picture with Lee Harvey Oswald. And Trump started it. He said, what is your dad doing in the picture? And here comes Ted. My dad didn't kill JFK. Wait, we didn't ask you that. You denying something nobody asked you, which made it look even worse.
That's a good point.
Remember, like, why you keep then nobody, just all we want to know is, we're just curious, were they buddies? What's going on? How dare you insinuate my father was involved in JFK assassination? So, those are the kind of things that Trump did. But so he may get at DeSantis, he may get at Nikki Haley, although I think Nikki Haley is really running for vice president. But if she had, she wouldn't do that.
But what I'm curious. It always frustrates me with when you hear, for example, Senator Mitch McConnell the other day. These coward Republicans always have a way of skirting the real issue. I don't support what he did, but if he's the nominee, I've got to support the nominee. Mike Pence is the same way. I'm wondering if Raffensperger is the same way. There are too many Republicans who know what he did was illegal, immoral. He tried to overthrow
Mike Pence's
his
life
own government.
Was on the line.
I mean, they had a noose out there for you. You can hear on the video. I don't understand these people. Ted Cruz. We all have wives or significant others. I don't know.
And you would think, Austin, as Mike V mentions, that he insulted Ted Cruz's wife. That's a line that you don't come back from. When you cross that line, there's no moonwalking it back.
When I come home, I want to have peace and quiet. I cannot take that incoming.
Will Smith
from my wife or my significant
Smith said,
partner.
You know what? he said Jada gave him that look. Jada gave him the look, right?
Unless Ted partially agrees with what. See, Heidi should left him. I mean, if somebody's joning on your wife, that's what I'm saying. He plays the dozens, and then you cool with it. No, you can't. You can't really get with it. But Austin, to your point, the reason folk are still saying that or will support him no matter what. To me, that's honestly a lot more deference given to the Fox News channel. Nobody wants Tucker Carlson on them. And so you say that. I find it hard to believe that any of those people want him to be the nominee.
Agreed.
So it's politic to say, well, if he is a nominee, we'll support him. But no one wants Fox News to do it. Did you all notice on the Super Bowl how many Fox News channel commercials they were promoting during the ad breaks? Did you all pick that up?
I did not.
I didn't.
Yeah, there were a lot of, and the Fox Nation streaming service.
Okay.
They were promoting that. And see, this goes back to the point, folks, we all in many ways enable this because we watch the NFL, the NFL and its relationship with Fox Sports subsidizes Fox News. They don't have any more advertisers.
Okay.
And so through the carriage fees and the fact that the NFL continues to allow them, because I know at one point the NAACP and other organizations demanded of the NFL that they sever that relationship with Fox Sports because they have no income. It's like FM radio stations so usually own AM stations, so they support AM stations because AM stations are not as much in vogue anymore. Right. The Fox Sports entity supports Fox News Channel because it has no advertisers.
See, I didn't know that. Okay.
Wow.
Point taken. Wow.
Well, yesterday, Mark, you were on the call. The executive order that was issued by President Biden told the government to do more to fix the problem of racial inequality. Mark, what was your takeaway from that call yesterday? What's your takeaway from the executive order that Biden signed?
Well, that's the other thing, Austin. When Greer said, we want you to come on the show, talk about you and Stacey being on the call with the White House yesterday, I said, why I need to get him to talk about that? They didn't say nothing. There was nothing. I wouldn't talk about that either. Biden, this is, it's somewhat tangible, somewhat symbolic, though. I think the White House is naive to think that this is something that the African-American community is going to look at and say, wow, Biden is doing a lot. I think the biggest thing he's done in terms of the African-American community has come in the way of all of the judges that he's appointed. That's important. But the question I asked was, what about reparations? HR 40, Senate Bill 40 have been reintroduced, but he can make those happen by executive order in the sense that this is a commission to study reparations proposals, and that's what needs to happen. When I asked that question, this is what they do. It's as if they do these things to avoid dealing with HR 40. They say, well, we support reparations, the study remark, but we don't want to wait for that to do some of the other things we want to do. But you're the ones waiting for it.
Exactly.
You saying you don't want to wait for it, well, then you stop waiting for it. If you don't want to wait for it, then enact it. And that would go a long way. So, I mean, this I'm not going to say it's a negative thing. It's more than Trump would have ever done, and perhaps a lot of other presidents. But it's still, we need him to appoint this commission to
somebody's
study
got some
reparations.
lullaby going on.
Yeah, I'm in. What says let me pause, and my daughter's next to me in the hotel room, and she doesn't hear.
Mark is always Mark is always going
on the road.
On the road. Let me turn this off.
Yeah,
but this order, is according to the White House, it's for the federal government to do more to promote racial equality and help underserved communities, right, Austin? And so he's telling heads of departments that they have to report to him any progress or whatever. I think yearly now, Mark. And like you said, it's more almost symbolic. And your question to your question yesterday, the response, of course, was it's pretty much we're here to talk about this executive order, not anything else. Because my question that I asked in that meeting yesterday, Mark, was about the situation in Mississippi. That falls under racial equality. If that doesn't, then what does?
No, I would agree. And we're at the place once again, the Kennedy brothers had no choice but to get more involved in civil rights because of what was happening in the individual states, like you described in Mississippi. So they had to intervene in Birmingham. They had to intervene in terms of the Freedom Riders and all of that. And so the question becomes, what is this White House going to do? In fact, and this would have been radical, but I said in the midst of when it happened, in the midst of what Trump and others were trying to do in terms of the election and the intimidation. I mean, at one point in the 1800s, there were federal marshals, and even some in the 60s. There were federal marshals that were sent by the DOJ to oversee,
Mississippi, yep.
The elections and make sure we weren't suppressed. See, if you want to do something like that, Biden, that's something that is real and that is necessary. This is a very technocratic executive order, and I think we can see there's no buzz about it. There's not a lot of talk about it in our communities because it's so technical, and some of the things in there remain to be seen. I got a heads up on one of the issues, though, in terms of there being more reporting when it comes to federal agencies and racial equity, because, and I will give one of the secretaries some credit, Marsha Fudge at HUD, because they rolled out about 3 or 4 weeks ago the initiative for the housing authorities in the states and cities to do what the Voting Rights Act used to do. So when states changed voting laws, they had to get pre-clearance before the Roberts Court knocked it down to any substantial changes. What HUD has done is done the same thing with housing rules, regulations, and equity. So you kind of have to get, it's not as legally binding as the Voting Rights Act pre-clearance, but if local housing authorities have to submit to HUD whatever their changes are in terms of equity in housing and trying to end segregated areas. So this kind of expands it a bit to other agencies. But again, it takes time for these agencies to enact this stuff. And, sometimes it takes years. 2008, the Gus Hawkins initiative to get more Black teachers was put in place. Just day before yesterday, did the funding come through? So the Department of Education sent $18 million to a number of universities to help recruit and train Black teachers in elementary and secondary school classrooms. This is 12, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, that the Justice Hawkins piece passed.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem. Again, the Biden administration can tout the judges. We held the Senate, the Democrats held the Senate, that'll help. But we gotta get him to agree that to stand up this commission, because until we have reparations, none of this stuff is gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think Biden has gotten through, if I read correctly a couple of days ago, over 100 judges compared to, I think, Trump did maybe 80, 85. So that's an accomplishment. What all Mark and you, Stacey, is saying about this whole executive order is just, to me, a sad reminder of how much work we've done, how much we've accomplished, but how much more work needs to be accomplished. The fact that a president of the United States had to sign this type of executive order, 6 or 7 years after the first Black president, left office. It's just a sad reminder that racism is still out there in all aspects of life, including the federal government.
Yeah, and it's out there in a large way. We keep seeing it every single day. And like you said, and this is why, you want to give the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, credit, but this is why you find David Youngblood, he writes in, is there money attached to the executive order? This is why you hear people say, okay, that doesn't mean anything, because people are tired of words, right? And people say, well, the executive order is an action. Symbolically, like as Mark mentioned earlier, most of it is symbolic.
Well,
Um,
and it's mostly at the agency level.
mhm.
Again, it's as if the Kennedy brothers in the middle of Birmingham had said, we see what's going on in Birmingham. Like you asked about Mississippi, we see what's going on in Birmingham. So we're going to send out an executive order for our agencies to decrease the level of segregation that they practice. I mean, okay, but these are matters of public concern.
Mhm.
What's going on in Mississippi with the judges, all of these types of things. A lot of this, and I don't want to minimize this though. Data collection is important in all of these instances, and that's one of the things that these federal agencies and these governments, federal, state, and local, get away with, even when there are laws passed to collect data. Way back in the Clinton administration, you two weren't born yet under Clinton, but those of us who are old enough to remember that. So I'm trying to help the
Very
brothers out.
much
These brothers
part.
are young. I'm trying to help these young brothers.
In my dreams.
They're trying to help y'all out. But I know, look, people will remember the Clinton administration did an executive order for data collection. There are over 20 federal policing agencies. All right. So we want data collection on every traffic stop made by federal folks. Who live in Washington, D.C., there are about 20 police forces that can stop you for driving while black, from the U.S. Capitol Police, Park Police on down. All right. Clinton administration, we want data collection. Never happened. That just sat out there. So that's the other thing. When Biden has some data collection stuff in here, not knocking it, but nobody does it.
Right.
Give an example. Centers for Disease Control. And I'm not sure whether the president has direct jurisdiction over them, but it's on the books that they're supposed to be reporting and doing data collection on the number of African Americans who die in custody. I had the NMA on my show the other day. Not just at the hands of the police, but black folk die in custody all the time in carceral places, prisons, jails. Still hadn't happened. They could do that today with stroke of a pen. That would just have to happen. And it would be put on the death certificate for everybody. And that's part of the problem, trying to get these agencies to do what they're supposed to do in terms of reporting. That would take us a long way. There is one thing that I would point out from this in terms of our young people. He did direct yesterday, and again, a lot of this is at the agency level. And let me not minimize those working in agencies who are still dealing with discrimination on the job at some of these federal agencies. I don't want to minimize that. So to the extent that that's happening, that's important. That's good. But he did also direct NASA to do more with HBCUs in terms of education. So that's good as well. And hopefully that'll give our young people an opportunity to go into more STEM fields.
Well, here's a question that Paris Brown, the managing editor of the Baltimore Times, writes in. Austin and Mark, is there any accountability for executive orders?
Well, the president would have to hold the agencies
accountable
that he's directing to do it accountable.
Yeah. Well,
but there's no measure for it.
Right.
It's not like there's anybody watchdogging to see if the agencies are actually doing it. And the thing about federal government agencies, they can take as long as they want to. Like the Department of Justice. We're not going to prosecute certain people. What you mean you're not going to prosecute Matt Gaetz? What you mean you're not going to prosecute? What
exactly. How is that? How's
that? We talked about that yesterday, Mark.
Yesterday. I mean,
that's as preposterous as it gets. Here's a little programming though. Later
this morning. I saw what you did there. I like that pun. I saw what you did there.
Later this morning, Mark and I will get together again, this time for Business for the Culture with Ebony McMorris, Instagram Live at 10 o'clock this morning. So check out more of Mark and you'll tune in for Mark. I know you're probably tired of me by now, but it's tune in. And Dr. Chavis is going to join that conversation as well. We'll talk more about the president's executive order. So we didn't just wake Mark up to talk about Trump.
Grid told me Grid told me Ben was going to be on with us this morning.
Uh-oh.
Greer's in trouble. Greer's in trouble.
Greer is never in trouble. She causes the trouble.
Oh, exactly. Thanks for clarifying.
Look, it's always great when we can get Mark under any circumstances. Of course, later today at 5:00, a very special Let It Be Known. We're going to talk with Mayor Chokwe Lumumba of Jackson, Mississippi, and that situation going on down there. And for those who did tune in yesterday, and there was a lot of you who tuned in, and we certainly at the very last moment, just before we went on air, Congressman Benny Thompson had a dental emergency, and so he had to reschedule. So we're looking forward to the congressman on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Again, that situation in Mississippi is, as someone wrote in, Mississippi is burning in 2023. And also, as mentioned here, Benny Thompson, of course, is the man that led that January 6th committee. So obviously, lots to talk about with Congressman Benny Thompson Tuesday at 10 a.m. But today at 5 p.m. is Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, who is really one of the bigger victims of what's going on down in Mississippi, and what they are about to unleash there is just incredible to think about in 2023. But it is Mississippi.
So when you talk, ask him this evening if it is not true that part of this thing in Mississippi, including the water, is to help drive the Black population into destitution out of Mississippi, so that white folks can come in and take out of Jackson. Drive them out of Jackson so white folks can come in and gentrify Jackson, because that's the only city, practically one of the only metropolitan areas in Mississippi.
Yep.
They want Jackson.
They definitely want Jackson, Mississippi, of course. And you know, we talk a lot about Republicans and how they plot for decades and decades, and they ultimately get, unless something steps in or someone steps in, they get their wish. And I agree wholeheartedly, Mark, that this is what they're after. In a city that's 83% Black, according to the last U.S. Census. So and
folks, we don't, what Stacey is saying is not just, him opining. Let's give a very specific example. 73 is Roe versus Wade. And see, this is where we get it wrong a lot of times. Right. And where our generation needs it. This is Black History Month. If our ancestors had thought that emancipation was going to come in a year or so, then they would have just given up. Republicans for 50 years never gave up. They did what Frederick Douglass said, eternal vigilance. They never gave up on getting Roe overturned. 50 years later, Roe is gone.
Exactly. Incremental steps, it's progress.
And so what Stacey is saying is not just something to be said. That is a hard, concrete example of what our enemies do in terms of their vigilance. We must make ours as eternal.
Yep. Empower 96 writes in, that has always been the plan in Jackson since white flight occurred, and New Orleans is next. What's next really is that we're going to talk to the mayor, but they really are part of it too. They are coming for Chokwe Lumumba. They want him out. They've wanted him out since he was elected in 2017 as the youngest mayor in Jackson's history. Much like Barack Hussein Obama, they hate the name Chokwe. Think about it. That's as African as you can get.
Well, and they know who his father was.
Exactly.
Who was offensive enough to them. Good man. His untimely transition led to his son succeeding him, and they just can't deal with it.
They can't accept it. And
Yeah.
gone are the days when we wait until the next election to remove someone we're displeased with for whatever
This is what
reason.
that law
Now
is
we just
about,
come up.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, hell, I remember being very upset and very disappointed and frustrated with the U.S. Supreme Court for handing the 2000 election to George W. Bush.
Mhm.
But my immediate reaction was, okay, we've got 4 years to get him out. Not this group of Republicans.
Mhm.
They will do whatever they can to overturn, and they're doing this not only at the. I mean, this what we see happening to this young brother in Mississippi is just an extension of what we saw 2 years ago during the January 6th upheaval uprising. They're taking their craziness, they're taking it to the state and the local levels. It's no longer good enough to wait for the next election. Let's
Yep.
create reasons to get them out. And it's okay if we're outright racist
Yeah.
in our efforts.
House Bill 1020 effectively castrates the mayor of Jackson. He has no power, and it creates a separate system of justice in this predominantly black city. We like it's been stated. The goal, and they are going for the throat now. And look, make no mistake about it. It's not just Mississippi. It's not just Jackson.
Exactly.
So once that's established there, which the Senate is going to be voting on that, and the Senate, they have like a 20-person advantage in the Senate, the Republicans do. So it's
It will
going
be
to pass.
signed into law. It will be signed into
It will
law
be
by the
signed, and
governor.
that governor there, who is, his pen can't wait. His pen, he probably doesn't even have to pick it up. He can't wait to sign. And make no mistake, this will happen. This sets a precedent. It's going to happen in Alabama. It's going to happen in Florida. It's going to happen in Texas. They're coming for black people in general. They're coming for us. And that's just the bottom line. They've made no bones about it. So with that said, with that out the way, and we will be talking more and more about this again, 5 o'clock today, Mayor Chokwe Lumumba will join us for a special Let It Be Known. Check us out then. But Mark and Austin, on a lighter note, you both have interviewed folks, lots and lots of folks. I've interviewed lots and lots of folks, and sometimes we may land that interview, and we've all experienced this, I'm sure. I mean, I've landed interviews I never thought I'd land before. But we land that one interview that we are like so hyped about and so excited about. And there was the case with I Show Speed. He's a YouTube influencer, and his dream was to talk with Drake. And Drake made his dream come true. But that dream of snagging Drake on his live was very quickly shattered when he laid on the schmooze, as they say, a little too thick for Drake's liking. The award-winning streamer connected with Drake Wednesday night, and immediately 50,000 people logged in to watch. I mean, that was just the beginning of the interview. So this had some tracks to attract so many more. He jumped up and down, as they say, with excitement and disbelief when he was finally linking with Drake. At first, Drake returned the gratitude. He praised I Show Speed for amassing such a big following over the years. They vibed on Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, and they both love Ronaldo. And then the conversation fizzled because I Show started talking about, bro, your voice is so sexy. How is it so smooth like that? Well, Drake was like, wait a minute, I'm out. I mean, and that was it. He says, I'm out. Drake was gone. How do you blow it like that? I mean, yeah, he's not a journalist. I Show Speed is not a journalist. But can you imagine, Austin, Mark, you land this interview and you do so many inappropriate things there. Come on.
He started talking about how his voice was sexy.
Yes.
Wow. But you said it, man. That's another part of enabling. that is happening. And some of us actually went to school and have degrees in journalism. That is a professional, used to be, I should say, a profession. Now, anybody with a social media account,
Exactly.
And so yeah, he did blow that. That's a doggone shame.
But I have a question. So Mark and Austin. So you see people like Drake uh, um, doing an interview with a YouTuber or an influencer, or whatever. They tend to shy away from real Black journalists. Yeah, why? Why is that? A, and then the other part of my question, which might be a separate question in itself, but I really want to hear from both of you on this. This Vlad TV, right, lands. Hey, big up to him. He lands you name him, he's gonna land them. But he almost always embarrassed the individual on nonsensical stuff, nonsensical things, right? Um, and he might make accusations against them or what. But Vlad continues to land these folks and get them to say stuff and upset them. Vlad is not a Black journalist.
No,
Vlad does
no.
not work for Black media. But yet these big stars Black stars continue to, what does he have something on them?
Well, they've got those followers, and when people want to go viral, they go on those shows. And some will say that some of what we do is not viral, but it's not viral if you don't support it and if you don't go on it.
Exactly.
So it's just like everything else. It's the same thing in terms of enterprise, Black business and Black enterprise. I talked about slavery earlier. To many of us, the white man's ice is still colder.
And that's what Mike V is saying.
Right. So you can't, but you can't blame us if that's your mentality. We continue to hold up the bloodstained banner. This is the Black press.
Right.
I was looking on one of the chyrons. Yeah, it is just flowing on the bottom of the screen. Folks, look at that. The original Black press of America. Shouldn't even have to say that.
Right.
But you have to, because it's a whole lot of folk out here fronting, and it's just not. It's just not real, and it's terribly unfortunate. Stacey and I were together yesterday on this White House call, but why can't Joe Biden be a guest on Let It Be Known, or on Make It Plain, or on Austin Show? Why can't he? Why aren't those of it? When's the last time you had a U.S. senator on Let It Be Known?
Right.
I mean, they seem not want to do any.
And it's not like we don't ask.
It's not saying they don't want to do any interviews. But see, the Democrats themselves never got that memo. Going back to the Republicans, they built the most powerful, for lack of a better characterization, interest-focused talk radio was always Black radio. Right-wing Republicans figured that out, and they built Rush Limbaugh and others.
That's right.
Democrats never got that. They didn't support and still don't support Black radio and Black journalism.
Yep.
But our enemies support their entities, so they still go on Fox and they still go on the white talk shows and they still do all that kind of stuff. But those politicians get that, and in other celebrities and big name people, you're right, they want to go on Vlad.
Yeah.
Who's Vlad?
But it also shows that it also shows how our
right. Where did he come from?
It also shows it says a lot about our Black entertainers, including as well as Black elected officials, who they themselves, Mark and Stacey, don't have a understanding, appreciation of the history of the Black press and the good work that we are doing each and every day. So without that appreciation, they feel more comfortable for whatever reason going on to these, social media platforms.
Well, it turns out many are not comfortable in their own skin, right? And so they can't sit with a Mark, make it plain Thompson. They can't sit with us at Let It Be Known. It's a fear that's unfounded. It's a fear that you're just going to expose what they don't realize has already been exposed. And going back briefly to Drake, my wife is asking, I wonder if a woman said that, would he have ended the interview? That's a good question, right?
But say it again. If
a woman had asked that question or said that about Drake, would he have ended the interview?
Oh yeah. Of course, yeah. Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. But again, though, having said that, if you're gonna, my problem with this, with these influencers and YouTubers who land these interviews, if you're gonna land the interview, then do the interview.
Thank you.
If you're gonna pretend that, I play a journalist on TV. No, if those are the credentials you're giving out to get the interview, then do the interview. Figure out what,
and do your homework.
Do some research.
Then do your homework.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
By the way, Greer was just saying something in our chat about Biden. The whole thing that went down with Fox Soul.
Yeah.
You know how many people call me and were like, they never heard of or watched Fox Soul in terms of black people. And I'm not saying to knock Fox Soul. That's just a fact.
Right. It's a fact.
People don't
I've never heard of it either. Yeah.
See, and I had heard of it. They invited me to be on some show once, and they didn't invite me back because they put me on with some super right-wing Republican, black Republican, and I wore him out. Uncle Tom's a triggering to me, Austin. So I went off, and they ain't let me, which is fine. But the fact that they even had a conversation about going on Fox Soul, which would have given Fox Soul, this is another Fox entity, and I guess they were compromising anyone to go on Fox News Channel, which is good. But they're going to compromise and go on Fox Soul rather than go on Let It Be Known or an original black press entity is appalling.
Now, Mark, if I may ask, Stacey, Mark, the Uncle Tom who you went off on the show, is he still in counseling, still in therapy? Have you followed up on his progress?
Did he send you a bill, Mark?
This brother was in such bad shape. I don't think he went to go get help from anybody because I don't think he was aware.
Yeah.
Of what, or maybe he was, and it's part of his shtick. Because a lot of these guys make it being contrary.
Exactly.
Most black folk think and talk the way the three of us do. So I can make a name for myself by being opposite and going to the far extreme. And so some of these folks are far too. They got white folks doing that. One of the young ladies who's is behaving like the George Santos in Congress. I can't think of her name, but they just exposed her. She was an Obama supporter. And then she became this right-wing Republican. So it's a lot of, speaking of fraud, we come full circle. There's a lot of fraud even in some of these electoral personalities.
Yeah. Candace Owens.
Well, you think she's a fraud? I don't know. I mean, she's
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. She is.
I think she believes it. Yeah, I think she believes
at this point. She believes it. Yeah, but just going back to that point of the president, we have, and he's been in office 2 years, and we've been requesting time with the president for 2 years. I go back to.
I don't even request no more. I just stop.
Well, I go back to the election. I go back to the primaries, and we all remember what always stands out to me was when, by the time the Biden campaign got to South Carolina, Dr. Chavis and I were in Nevada, and we were meeting with, I believe it was Michael Bloomberg? I believe it was Michael Bloomberg and someone else. We were in Las Vegas. We flew from Vegas to South Carolina, and many of our Black press publishers joined us in South Carolina. Joe Biden, the candidate, came to the hotel to sit with us, exclusively with us. His campaign was about to fold, as we know. His campaign was on the verge of total collapse. He was losing. Bernie Sanders was just about to take a stranglehold on that nomination. He sat down with Dr. Chavis and the Black publishers. I'm in the room. We're there. There's a video of this and lots of pictures. We talked to candidate Biden, and he talked about the soul of America. He talked about what he wanted to do for Black folks. And to his credit, he certainly has been doing a lot of the things that he told us he would do. He sat with us, but my point is this. He sat with us. That interview went viral. And later that evening, Clyburn endorsed him. That campaign never looked back. They obviously, it catapulted him to the White House. So my point again is, why won't they make him available to the entity that really kickstarted his campaign, really kickstarted his catapulted him, not kickstart, catapulted him to the White House? You know, everyone says, well, it was Clyburn's endorsement, and I don't disagree that that was a major part, but don't underestimate that role, that interview with Dr. Chavis and the Black publishers who gathered there in South Carolina with Joe Biden. That was a huge part of his campaign, recovering and jumping into the White House. And we are, and I know, this is certainly not a shot at, the people around Biden, Erica Lowe and Rekia Dorff. They do such a fantastic job. We are so grateful for Erica, so grateful for Rekia and that whole team. They are wonderful. But I know that there's only so much they can do.
And I'll give Erica credit, because I will say this, more than any other administration, even during the Obama administration, White House staff, agency heads would you not agree, Stacey, have been made more available?
Yes.
Than any other administration ever has.
Ever. They have given the Black press more access. This administration has given us more access than all the administrations behind them combined.
Including Obama. But
listen, Trump gave us access too.
Yeah.
They didn't give us access to him, but they gave us access to officials and the White House. They did invite us. I mentioned that with me and Stevie Larkin down in South Carolina, they personally invited us to come to that down there to sit with the president, not with the president, but sit as he discussed his plans for Black America. He didn't take any questions, so it really didn't matter, right? But they still invited us on a more regular basis, even than the Obama administration. But this administration, no other administration compares when it comes to giving Black reporters, in particular the Black press, access.
Except to the president himself.
To the president himself.
Yeah. Everybody
even the vice president. The vice president has held sessions with our publishers, Zoom meetings with our publishers. But the president, since he's been in office, we have not gotten so much as a phone interview with the president. Not that the president really does phone interviews, but you get my point. So that should change. It needs to change. Hopefully we're on the verge of having that change. Black Press Week is coming up. Huge day, March 17th. Mark your calendars. There's going to be a State of the Black Press address at the National Press Club. Dr. Chavis and our publishers from around the country will descend upon Washington, D.C. That week and on the 17th. And we have invited the president. We are hoping that the president will, at the very least, make a short appearance somehow, be it in person, which we would prefer, or via Zoom, or somehow we are hoping that the president makes an appearance. That is a very important day. We're talking 196 years of the Black press, as you mentioned earlier, Mark, and the Black press is still vital.
Well, the National Press Club is 3 or 4 blocks from the White House, so
Exactly.
hopefully he will get over there this year.
Exactly. So we will see. And we'll keep having people like Mark make it plain, keep some pressure going on Make It Plain, because you got to listen to Mark on Make It Plain. It's everything you want from a Black journalist. So listen to Make It Plain. Mark, tell them where they can listen.
Wherever you get your podcasts, folks. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can Make It Plain.
Make It Plain. So check it out.
Thank you, Stacey.
Always listen to Austin Cooper, because when you don't, you miss something. You miss something important if you don't listen to Austin Cooper. So don't forget, again, as we sign off, join us at 5 o'clock this evening for a special Let It Be Known interview with Jackson, Mississippi Mayor Chokwe Lumumba. That situation in Mississippi, the newly proposed Jim Crow law that is about to be law. And they're not making any bones about it. They're not hiding what it really is all about. And so they talk about stay woke. Well, listen, if you're not awake by now, then keep sleeping, because you're useless. Thanks again, and we will see you at 5 o'clock today.
All right, John.